What's going on, everybody? Tori, McElhaney, Will McFadden, and General Manager Terry Fontenot here on Radio Row at the NFL Scouting Combine. Terry, how you been?
Outstanding.
Yeah?
How are you?
Doing well?
Outstanding. Couldn't be better.
Couldn't be better.
Couldn't be better.
Now that you're talking to us, it's the best part of your day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this.
Good. I'm so glad. So let's set the table a little bit before we really start talking about where we are in terms of combine stuff, but also free agency coming up.
Yep.
Y'all are kind of in the midst of wrapping up February meetings with the entire front office, pro scouts, college scouts. I know that's a really important time for you guys. And just to kind of peel back the curtain for the fans, can you take us inside those meetings and what is it about those meetings that y'all come out of and feel confident about?
Yeah, very, very important meetings. So basically the information we have at this point, we have all the data that the scouts have gathered on the players throughout their college careers. So we have all the background information, and we have all the grades, the actual grades from the film. We just finished the All-Star games, and so whether it's the Senior Bowl, East-West, we have all the data from those games. So that's all the information. So all the information we have is background information and information based off football. Most of the measurables, some we have confirmed, but most of them are estimates and those things. So we go in, we sit down in the room, and we go through top to bottom. We go through every player, and we go through the evaluations. We go through the background, confirm the makeup grades, and we go through and watch tape. And we go by position, so you go in order, and we stack the board based off. So right now our whole college board is stacked just based off football. Not based off the Underwear Olympics, not based off of spending time with the players, not based off of, it's based off just scouts, boots on the ground, evaluating the players. And so it's important to do that because now we're going to get all this other information, which is important.
Right.
We'll spend time with the players. We'll assess the mental. Our coaches will spend time with them. Our coaches will grade the players and go through it. We'll discuss the vision of the players. And so when we get in our April meetings, we have a lot more information that we're looking at right now, but we still have to, those things make a difference, but you always got to go back to the football part because that's what it comes down to. Even if a guy blazes in the 40 here, okay, we said his play speed was that, or we said he struggled running downfield, so why does this change? Now, there could be a factor. Right. Was there an injury? Was there something that he was dealing with? Is there a reason that he ran faster? What was his weight at the time? And so all those things are a part of it, but those February meetings are so important because it's all based off football.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, I'm always fascinated by, in November, if you look at somebody's big board or a mock draft or whatever, and then you look at it kind of mid-April, early April, it can be totally different. And I do feel like this time of year, a lot of that, and your intro press conference back in 2021, you kind of said, I'm aware of all of this. I look at it, I read it, and I expect everybody else to do the same. So that smokescreen element of the draft process, is that why it's important to get kind of that first board set going ahead of the combine?
Absolutely, yes. And those mock drafts, and they kind of happen pretty early, and you see those, and just to make yourself laugh, I'm sure we all do it, look at the ones, take a snapshot of the mock drafts during the season or right after the season, and go back and look at as we're approaching the draft, and then even after that point, because they continue to change as there's more information and as you learn more about the players and all those things. And so it's always funny to look at, like if you do a mock draft simulator right now, you can have this great draft, but those things are going to change. They're going to change as we continue to go.
Oh,
A+ drafts in the simulator only. That's all what I'm about.
Trust me, all I do during this time is mock drafts. That's it. And it's always, I have to change it every single week so that you do get a variety of like, hey, what could this guy be for this team?
Yeah, they're discussion starters as much as anything.
Yeah,
it's scenarios.
And we actually have our analytics group does a good job. They basically have this formula where they put all the mock drafts together, and so and they're in the meetings, and sometimes you just ask to know what the outside perception is. Where is he mocked? And okay, well, this percentage is mocked in this area, and he's mocked in this area, and we see how they continue to change. And so you always want to be aware of that information. Because it's funny to see how it changes.
How much does y'all's change? Like when you look back on the last few years where you go after Bijan and Drake and Mike, and you look at where you guys had them maybe coming out of those February meetings to what they ended up being, how different or similar were y'all's evaluations of, especially that first round of guys?
Yep. So those players, like if we talk about Bijan specifically, Bijan, we had him at the top of the board.
Yep.
He was the highest because we knew what he was as a football player. And then with Bijan, every other exposure, it just continued to confirm everything you knew about the player already. When you spend time with him and you know the player is a home run, unbelievable. The only thing you worry about with him is he's too good of a person. So that's what you're really worried about him.
Right,
and he may work too hard and overwork himself. He did that to himself last offseason. He worked way too hard in the offseason. We had to pull him back and say, hey, slow down and give your body a little bit of a rest. But all the information, all the time that we spent with him, it just continued to confirm that information. So he was at the top of the board in the February meetings, and he stayed up there. Same with Drake London. We had Drake London graded high, and we continue to gather information throughout the whole process, and it confirmed it. Sometimes it can be different. You can have a guy that's at a certain spot, but then you gather more information. It could be medical information.
Right.
It could be we assess the mental when you spend more time with them. What's the vision for us? Where do we see this player fitting? So sometimes it goes the other way, but you still want to make it based off football. You know how important our ethos is and our makeup and all those things, and we got to continue to bring the right types of players in this building. So those all mean things, but we're trying to make sure we get really good football players.
It's interesting because that actually leads me into my next question. You know, with Bijan and Drake and Mike, these are guys that y'all had the opportunity to sit down and have conversations with at the Combine over the last 3 years. And I'm curious to your point about understanding who these guys are, what makes them tick, who they are in pressure situations. What can you find out about someone, and maybe even what you found out about those guys in this setting at the Combine, that helped build a profile of the guy that you ultimately went after?
Yeah, what our scouts do a really good job of is they build a profile of the player, right? But then they give us those specific, okay, these are the questions that we really need. These are the things we need to learn about this player. Some player might be the mental. Some player might be, we need to ask him about these specific things. But going through every step of that, whether it's this, whether it's the pro day, whether it's the Zooms, or whether it's the 30 visits, when you go through all those things, when you have that just consistency with those players, it's so important. And you learn how you do anything is how you do everything. We always say that, but it's true. All these things matter. And because we're not, if we just needed to do a background check and make sure a player was clean, and that's not how it goes. They're not going to all be Boy Scouts or choir boys. That's not what we're looking for. There can be a player that has some challenges at some point in his life, at some point, but we want to make sure that they're good people and they love and truly love and are passionate about football. There might be some guys that have a really clean background, but we don't believe they have the right passion and love for the game. We want guys that are angry after the season. When we met with, obviously we had a lot of meetings with players after the season. We met with every single player that was that's under contract right now, and those guys are angry after the season in the right way, because they know what we can be, and they wanted to line up right then. And okay, we need to make sure we do everything we can this offseason so we don't have the same feeling. And so, like, those guys are angry after losses. You need those types of players. So we're not just trying to figure out the background and those things, and okay, you're smart, you can do, but are you dying to win? And do you truly love this game? And will you do anything you can do to win? And do you have that real passion? So all those factors matter.
When we talk about kind of approaching an offseason, both draft, free agency, and just the way the game changes, how aware do you have to be as a general manager and as a front office of the evolution that happens between seasons? Because I think about a player like Caden Ellis and Zach Bond in Philly, and that kind of new archetype of like this pass rushing inside linebacker who can do a little bit of all of it, you know, they weren't top of the market players when they were brought in by the organization. So does that help maybe almost win free agency, for lack of a better term, if you're aware of kind of the trends and where the league is going?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think an important factor to that is when we talk about Raheem Morris and a head coach like that does have he has a clear vision for what he wants, and yet he's an adaptive, flexible in the right way. He knows that we have to get the most of our players. Brick talked about it in his presser about being multiple and doing different things with players. So you want coaches that can have that vision. So now all of a sudden we see the scouts are evaluating a certain player, and he may not fit the perfect mold of what we're looking for at this particular position, but there is a vision for how we can utilize him and how we can make him effective, and being able to be forward thinking in that right way, and not just looking at the history of the way things have gone or the way we have done these things, being able to have an open mind about it. I love that about Raheem and Brick and our entire coaching staff, whether we're talking about offense or defense, having that open mind and knowing that we have to bring in good football players that are passionate about the game, but having that vision of like the way things evolved for Caden Ellis and bringing in players that are good football players and figuring out ways to utilize them.
I want to switch really quickly to talk about the quarterback a little bit. Now, you've been asked a lot about Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, and you can check out all of his press conferences, what he said at the podium on AtlantaFalcons.com and the YouTube channel. So we're
not here to ask you about Kirk.
We're not going into that, but something I am curious about is your confidence in Michael Penix Jr. moving forward. And something that we talked to Raheem about that I thought was really fascinating was how Michael Penix, in a certain sense, almost surprised you guys beyond what you knew about him, even going into why you drafted him. Yep. I'm curious if you feel the same way, looking at what he was as Kirk's backup, and then what he did in those 3 games, and what you feel like he could be moving forward.
Yeah, rare maturity, and you see the arm talent and all those things. We see that on a daily basis. I would say, throughout the year, as we know that in college he was more of a pocket passer his last 2 years in college. Prior to that, he could run around. Yeah. And when you watch his college tape, and they call him Tech 9. I don't know if y'all know that's his nickname, but his high school was Tech 9. So his jersey was, but dude could run. I mean, he is running around, making plays and those things. After the injuries, that's when he became more of a pocket. But we see all that explosiveness and as a movement and all the things, and with our player performance group, all the things they do. So we see the physical talent. He's one of our more athletic players, just period.
Saw that in the Carolina game.
Yes.
Yep.
So outside of the quarterback position, we see all that ability, and we all knew the arm talent and what he could do with those things. But I would say the maturity is rare, and the way he handles himself, the type of teammate he is, all those things is just rare with him. So now as we go into this offseason, and the way he'll build those relationships, continue to work and improve himself, and just the natural leadership, those are the exciting things.
Yeah.
Last big one for you, Terry. When you're looking at kind of planning for the 2025 offseason, how cognizant are you of 2026 and what the outlook is going to be like next February, next March? Because if you look at some of the contracts that are going to be up next year, they're pretty substantial. So are you kind of factoring that into the plan that you're developing for this offseason?
That's a great question. That's exactly what we do. We go through, and everything we look at all the decisions that we're going to make this year, and then we have 2026, and we're looking at the effects in 2026. And we literally go to it and take ourselves to that moment and make those decisions. Okay, well, this is how we'll handle this. This is how we'll handle that. So we can't just be a prisoner of the moment and look at how this is going to affect 2025. We've got to look at 2026 and 2027. Okay, what are our needs going to be at this point? What are our musts going to be at this point? And we have to look at how these things are affecting and what are the decisions we'll have to make at that point. So in doing that, now you can talk about an early extension or with this player, or you can talk about, okay, even like we talked about the draft last year, it's about the future. You have to think in terms of the future when you're talking about the draft. Obviously, you want players that are going to make an impact for you right now, but you also have to think about the future and what's coming down the pike. And so you can have flexibility in those ways. So that's a critical part of what we do with our admin department, with our analytics department, looking at the future years and the effects of the decisions this year.
Last question, we'll let you go. When you look at, I've asked you this question every single combine that we've been to. You always come into the offseason with a theme in mind and with an idea and with kind of a talking point in mind. When you look at the 2025 offseason and what you hope for the in season when you get there, what is this theme for you and your staff?
Starts with us. It starts with us and with our roster. And we're always very intentional about our roster. But we have to, whether we're developing our younger players or whether we're maintaining or having those critical plans and visions for our veteran players, but we have to make sure we're doing the right things on our roster and we're developing our guys here. Then we have to attack free agency in the right way and make sure we're helping our team in free agency. We're selective in the right way, and we're effective in the right way, and we're bringing in players that are going to be effective for us. And then we got to attack this draft, whether it's 5 draft picks or whether we pick up more. We have to make sure we attack the draft in the right way. So we have to be effective. We got to be aggressive. We have to attack it, but it's going to start with our roster, and we can't forget that. And we have to make sure that we get the most of our players here and then make sure we're supplementing in the right way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
sitting
you.
down with us.
Thank
I know
you,
you
Terry.
got some rounds
Awesome.
to make,
This is
so
great.
thank you. We appreciate it.
Good job. Thanks.